This is Maxx Forman. We're at 55 Studios. Today's episode of Sound Advice is on engineering. Let's go. I am a recording, mix, and master engineer. We're kind of the glue that puts the song together and finalizes it. A good engineer can make or break a song just as much as a good artist can, or bad artist. As far as recording, engineers make sure that the mics are set up properly, that the levels are coming in properly, making sure that nothing's peaking or sounds too harsh. We kind of coach the artists as far as like, maybe this take isn't the best one, do this one again, say this one like this, and then as long as the capture is proper, then we move on to mixing. I like to say it's like laminating a piece of paper. Like we kind of just smooth everything over and make sure everything is one unified sound. Bias aside, I think engineering is very important. There's a few industry songs that I won't name specifically, but are very famously known for having awful mixes, and they are very close, if not number one songs in the country that have terrible mixes, and that's the engineer's fault. It's very important. Even subconsciously, listeners, even if they don't know that the mix is bad, it will affect their listening experience. So even on a subconscious level, engineering is very important to the final song sound. Things to listen for would be like harsh frequencies. If you turn it up really loud and you get that like harshness in your ear, that's probably the number one mood killer as far as good and bad mixes. You want it to be well balanced, like left and right, as well as low frequency and high frequency. Well balanced is pretty much the key to it. I mean, there's not really rules per se because music is so creative and interpretive, but sonically and like there's a science to it. A well-balanced mix is what makes a mix the best. So the skills needed to be a good engineer, I would say number one is patience. It's a lot of long hours and listening to this, not only the same song over and over again, but literally piece by piece. I mean, I've done the same line of a song over 100 times back to back before. So patience is definitely the key. A good ear, knowledge of the program that you're using and the plugins and the hardware that you're using is definitely a skill. Just not being afraid to step outside of the box and just go with like what feels right. Sometimes the best takes will not be technically the best takes, but like sometimes you capture a feeling that you can't recreate. So like there's certain like executive decisions that you have to make as an engineer. Sometimes stepping on the artist's toes, like borderline, but it's up to the engineer to make the call, and like having your artist having trust in you is very important as well. And that kind of gives you the freedom to be like, listen, man, as the professional here, this is what I think you should do. A little bit of firmness too, because it's easy to get stepped on as an engineer and kind of just let the artist run it, which works sometimes, but at the same time, an artist's job is to be an artist and the engineer's job is to be the engineer. So there's kind of like that mutual understanding and developing trust. So it's also people skills, and being personable is another good skill to have. Common misconceptions about an engineer, I would say that the number one misconception I get is that I could take a home recording that was done in someone's bedroom with a $200 mic and make it sound like you recorded it here. I mean, as much as you can fix home recordings, the capture is the most important part of the recording and engineering process, because if you do that wrong, you're going to spend the rest of your time fixing it rather than just doing it right and moving forward. Another misconception, I think, would be that it's as simple as just hitting record and doing it, and that an artist can engineer themselves. And although that's possible, I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's more nuanced than people think that it is. Some recordings are good enough that you really don't have to do much. I mean, you kind of just like plug and play and go and it's done. But there's other times where, I mean, it's very nuanced and layered. And I think that people misconceive it to think that it's really just hitting record and capturing. And there's just a lot more to it than that. Advice for upcoming engineers, I would say the best way to learn is to just do it. I mean, I went to school for it. I've been engineering, professionally over 10 years, and even just in general, even longer than that. And I've learned more knee deep in Pro Tools than I did in any class from any professor. I mean, just doing it is the most important thing. I mean, you can learn anything on YouTube. And if you just watch that and then implement that into your own work, as far as working for free, find an artist you really like and help them out, work with them, develop their sound. That's the most important thing about an engineer, is finding a signature sound. The most famous engineers have something signature, like Mike Dean, for example. You know when you hear a Mike Dean mix. Identifying a sound and using it, and just do it. Yeah? Put in the hours and don't give up.